and welcome. I'm Deborah Vinsel here at Thurston Community Television, and this is TCTV's live election night coverage, The First Returns. Tonight, we're cable casting this program on all 4 of TCTV's cable channels, channels 3, 22, 26, and 77 on the Comcast system, channels 22 and 23 on Fairpoint and Yelm, and streaming live on the internet, which you can find at tctv.net. Our audio is also being carried by our friends at KAOS 89.3 FM, as well as on their website, chaosradio.org. So thanks for partnering with us on that, Chaos. Every year, TCTV teams up with the League of Women Voters to bring you televised candidate forums, and we also produce a voter's guide, a video voter's guide, so that you can make an informed decision about who you're going to vote for. If you didn't watch them before casting your ballot this year, make sure to look for them next year. We do them every year. So now the ballot boxes are closed, and the Thurston County Election Center is busy counting up the ballots that they've received already. And we're going to have some first results soon. But first, we have a couple of special guests here in the studio. In a little bit, SPSCC political science professor Peter Rex is going to join us to talk about the local Thurston County political scene. But first, I'm really pleased to have Betty Gould, our outgoing county clerk, as our guest. It's our tradition here at TCTV to welcome retiring elected officials to talk about their tenure in their office and to say thanks to some folks. And Betty, I know you have a lot of places to be tonight, but we're really glad that you could spend a few minutes with us. And first and foremost, I want to say thank you for your public service.
Oh, thank you.
You've been in your office how many years?
24 years.
24 years.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people may not really understand what the county clerk's office is. So why don't you give us a little, County Clerk 101.
Okay, I'll give you some 101. First of all, we always say we're the keeper of the records. So the judges make the decision, and separation of powers, in the executive branch, as I'm in the executive branch, I keep the records for the public. So what I really am is I'm a servant for the public. So I make sure that you have access, they have access to the records, what the court's ruled, and make sure that everything is protected forever. Also, we provide a lot of services, and I don't know that the public knows that. We have a guardianship monitoring program that we've had for 18 years. We have volunteers that come in and go through the guardianship files to make sure that everything balances. It's just been, we have one left, and he's been with us for 18 years. It's wonderful. John Powell is wonderful. We also have a facilitator program for people that are in family law cases that can't afford an attorney. And we have 2 employees that do just a marvelous job. We can't give legal advice, but we sure can help you with the paperwork and stuff.
Kind of maneuver your way through the system a little bit.
Tell you what you need to get through the system. We have a collection program that we work with criminal defendants who need to complete everything so they can get their record kind of straightened around, and we work with them to make sure that they understand what they owe and work with them, and that's been a huge project. So we have a lot of things that we do. We have a self-help center there that people can come in and get the forms they need at, and so we do a lot of things for the public. We have public terminals so you can view documents because we're paperless. We're really excited, in the last 2 years we've gone paperless totally, which is a huge thing because we've lost staff. I think I've lost 9 staff over the budget times. So, but one of the things we have to do that is really important too is that my staff is who's in the courtroom. So the clerk sitting next to the judge is staffed by me so that they can keep a record for the public. So when you come in, you can tell what the judge ordered and see the documents. So we have stored the records from 1847 to date.
Wow.
And that's probably one of the hardest things for me to leave is I have loved the history. I've gone through all those big bound ledgers and read the history, and there is just such a revelation of what it was like in the 1800s. So.
Well, in your job, as I know in mine, because I've been in this position for 24 years, technology has made huge changes, yeah. So I'm sure it's been a huge change for you. You just mentioned that you went paperless. What other kinds of things, from a technology standpoint, have been implemented in the clerk's office?
When I started in the office, we had one computer that was used half-time for the accounting person, And we had one dumb terminal, and they lined up to do their data entry that goes to the statewide system. And so after exactly 1 year to date, we moved into a remodel office with computers on every desk, and we had a couple staff that actually cried. They didn't know how to turn them on. So we progressed from that to, I purchased an imaging system in 1999, and that was a huge, and then we did a big system, total imaging system in 2003, which took all of the records that I had in my possession, which is 1847 to that date, and we imaged over 17 million pages. And we got right under the cost, so it was $500,000 to do that, which would about
How long did it take to image that many years?
3 years, yes. And we just had a great vendor that did the work, and the state worked with us, state archives worked with us, and so we have protected all of our records. And what we did after that was, the hardest thing I've done was to give up my bound ledgers with the beautiful calligraphy, because the cases were in those bound ledgers, and so I put those into the state archives so that they can be preserved for the history for our kids.
And available, and made available.
Yes.
Yeah, the state archive's an amazing service.
Yes, it is.
Too.
So it's just been, we've gone from handwriting minutes in the courtroom to now everything is automatic. We have programs that we've entered. I think one of the things I'm excited about is we've got a kiosk for domestic violence victims at the Family Justice Center. It's something I've been working with the prosecutor and sheriff on, and victims can go there, enter the data, it's forwarded to us. All they have to do is come to court, and there's daycare down at the Family Support Center for their kids. So we're just making things better for everybody, but especially victims of domestic violence.
Well, I don't know if viewers can see, but when you first walked in here, I commented about the purple highlights in your hair. And I asked if that was, you know, a nod to your upcoming retirement, but you said no, it was because it was Domestic Violence Month. So I know that issue, the issue of domestic violence, is something that you put a lot of time into. It's near and dear to your heart in terms of what you do as a clerk, but also just how you support the community. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I remember as a paralegal coming into the office and filing documents before I decided to run, and I would see victims standing at the front counter answering questions where everybody could hear them, kids hanging around their legs crying. And I thought, boy, this just isn't right. And
not very dignified. There's no dignity there, no privacy. Yeah.
So the first thing I did when I made that promise, and I did, we have 2 DV liaisons and we have 1 advocate. And the difference with the advocate is they can actually help with, you know, planning, safety planning, and that type of thing too, and really work through them through the process. The liaisons work with them, get the paperwork filled out, and go to court. So we have 2 of those. We have a private room where they meet. We just have done a lot to do the best, but I still have lost 1 victim that I'll never forget. And so that's what I'm going to do when I'm retired. I'm going to be working with the Family Support Center so I can work and continue to provide assistance for victims. But with the Family Justice Center that we've created, that's in its 2nd year, we have every resource you can imagine in one place. Daycare, everything for people, so they aren't running all over trying to find help. And I think that's a huge thing. And so it's just, we need to take care of the kids and we need to take care of the victims. And so that's where my heart is, and I'm going to keep doing that.
Great. You've shared a couple of really wonderful accomplishments, the technology and of course the work with domestic violence issues. So I'm wondering, and I always ask, because you know, when you look back over 24 years, you kind of go, wow, I wish I could have, not necessarily a regret, but is there something that, you know, you really wish you could have gotten to or convinced somebody to do and that just didn't quite happen?
I think that the one thing that I probably still have a heavy heart with is the fact that we really don't have the funds to support the criminal justice system. You know, they always say, well, we use the major part of the budget, but the way that our budget is at the county, you know, the general fund is kind of controlled differently, and we have a great sheriff, and we have great people that work with the sheriff's office that really want to take care of the community, and it just seems like our budget and the way that it's handled is something that concerns me. And I'm actually excited about Better Thurston, thinking about finding a better way to do our business and maybe looking at what's a better way for this government to run.
Well, I get the sense that you may be not in the office on the courthouse hill there, but I think that you're not going to just disappear. So you did mention that you have some plans to work with the Family Support Center. And you mentioned when you came in that you have 43 days left in office. So what happens on day 44?
Well, I have 9 grandkids, and I have 5 of them are in California with 2 of my children.
Road trip.
Yeah, so we'll be, and you know, I don't take a lot of time off. I've really been a commitment to this office and my staff, and I have a fantastic staff. I'm going to miss them horribly, but we're going to do a little bit of traveling. But no, this community's the love of my heart, and I'm going to stick with it. So
there's, I'm sure, more people than you could name in a thank you list, but there's some very special people that you would like to just acknowledge for what they've meant to you over the years.
Oh yeah, there's so many. We've just been talking about that. That's really hard. My staff. I really have quality staff, and some of them have been there as long as I have. They've stayed the whole time with me, and they are so committed, and they love this community the same way I do. So big thank you to my staff, because that's what makes me look good. It's not me, it's the staff. I really appreciate our judges, especially some of the new judges coming in. They've just got a vision, and I think that it's just going to make our court that much better. I miss some of our retired judges too, but we have a great bench, and I'm really proud of them. The county is great. The workers there are committed to this community, and thank you to the citizens who've elected me. I mean, 6 times I've run, and only 3 times did I have any competition, and they've just stood beside me, and they've supported me, and I'm really thankful for that. And just thankful for the elected officials that have been partners with me and what we're doing up there. Great, great group.
Well, we've come to the end of our segment, but I do want to say thank you again from myself and from the citizens of Thurston County.
Thank you.
For your public service. It takes a lot for somebody to throw their hat into the ring, because certainly you go through a fair amount of scrutiny. But public service is something that is a special calling.
It is.
And I greatly appreciate when people make an effort and step forward and put their name forward on a ballot to run for office. And for 24 years, you've been there for us. And I say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Sit there for just a second. Thanks to Betty for joining us. We're going to be joined by Peter Rex, South Puget Sound Community College political science professor, in just a minute. But first, we want to show you what happens to your ballot after you toss it into a ballot box. Maxwell Brown from TCTV and Spencer Mordick produced a video that shows you we're going to follow the ballot. So we're going to take a look at that now.
Hi, my name's Mary Hall. I'm the Thurston County Auditor. I was elected last November, took office upon certification to serve out a 1-year unexpired term. So I'm on the ballot again this year, but did not draw any opposition.
Can you describe the journey of a ballot?
Sure. The first thing that happens is actually what you see behind me. The ballots come in either from the mail or they're put in a drop box, and the workers have to get them in a certain order and in a certain direction so they can be put on our scanner, which then checks in the ballot, but it also takes a picture of the signature. And then later that signature is compared to the signature that we have on file for that voter. Most people aren't aware that we check every single signature. It's not a sampling, we look at every single one.
What's new this year in the election shop?
We were fortunate enough to be able to purchase new tabulators last year, so we're using those in the first general election. We went from 5 to 2 just because they're so much more efficient and faster and more accurate as well. So that was a great addition to our process.
How long does it take to get a ballot through the system?
From the time it comes in the door to the time it goes on the tabulator, it's really about 4 hours.
How do the write-in votes get processed?
Sure. Write-ins actually are sorted into a separate bin, and we keep the write-ins separate, and That's because there are some instances where we need to tally them. If you add the number of write-in votes to the number of votes that weren't marked in that race, which they call undervotes, if the write-ins and the undervotes added together could potentially beat the person elected, then we have to tally the write-in votes.
What percentage of ballots do you expect to come in?
As of today, we have 26% of our ballots in, and typically we receive 50% of our ballots for an election on election day and after. So we're right on target for what I anticipated turnout to be, which is between 52 and 55%.
When does the election get certified?
The election is certified the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Who certifies the election?
We actually certify the election for all of the local candidates, and then we forward our results to the state. Secretary of State's office then certifies the ballot initiatives. They combine all of the results for 39 counties across the state.
Any final words for the people of Thurston County?
Our ballot drop boxes are open until 8 p.m. on Election Day, and so is the office if you need to get a replacement ballot. And I just want to caution folks that if you put your ballot in a mailbox on Election Day, please check the last pickup time to ensure that that ballot is going to be picked up and postmarked, because it has to have a postmark of Election Day or earlier in order for us to count that ballot. And I'd like to thank my amazing election team. While I have 9 full-time employees, it takes upwards of 100 extra help staff who come back year after year to run these elections. We couldn't do it without them.
Welcome back to the First Returns, TCTV's election night coverage. If you're listening on KAOS 89.3, you can also tune in to TCTV's cable channels on Comcast, channels 3, 22, 26, or 77, or in Yelm on Fairpoint, channels 3, 22, and 23. We're also streaming on the internet. Go to tctv.net to view the program over the internet. We're now joined by SPSCC's political science professor, Peter Rex. Thanks for joining us,
nice
Peter.
To be here.
It's always fun to have somebody with us that has a sense of the political environment. I will share with our viewers that we just got some very early, some numbers, and our staff is quickly getting them into our system, so we'll get to them in just a second. But I do want to welcome Peter. So you've been at the college for 3.5 years now?
3.5 years, yeah.
Yeah, so let's take a look real quick at what we've got in front of us, and I know we'll have an opportunity to talk a little bit more. I want to talk a little bit about initiatives. We'll get to the local races in just a second. I'm looking at the Secretary of State's website, and Initiative 1351, which is the initiative about classroom size, currently looks like it's failing statewide. Is that a surprise to you?
It's a little bit surprising to me, and I think we need to wait. Obviously, King County is the big county that carries so many votes that will be the one that determines the fate of this initiative. But in Thurston County, it's losing right now 52.6% against. And that's a little surprising to me, because it seems like this would be a county where that would do fairly well. The polling I've seen ahead of the election showed that it was getting 60% projected. And so I will be mildly surprised if this does not pass. And the fact that the first returns out of Thurston County show it failing, it's a little bit surprising to me.
Okay, moving on, Initiative 591. Now there's two kind of competing initiatives dealing with firearms on the ballot. Initiative 591 is failing statewide as it stands right now. 56% say no, 43% say yes on that initiative. And then Initiative 594, which has to do with expanding background checks, that one seems to be passing by quite a margin. 61.8% say yes on that statewide, according to the Secretary of State's website. 38% say no on that one.
Right. These are two initiatives that are really in conflict with each other, because 591 says that basically we'll follow any federal standards or guidelines as it relates to background checks, which would probably be looser than we have right now in Washington State. 594 says that we'll have background checks for private sales as well. This is something that's been pushed by a lot of people for a long time. It was tried in the legislature, didn't pass there, so they ran an initiative, and it's been very well funded, millions of dollars behind 594. And the polling has always shown that the people are pretty supportive of this idea, so I expect it to pass tonight. And it looks like 591 is probably going to be defeated. That was an interesting one as well. It seems like the gun rights advocates probably knew they couldn't defeat the other initiative, so they came up with their own initiative that they thought would sound plausible and see if they could get that passed as well alongside the other one. And it sounds like it's not going to happen tonight.
Well, you know, that's kind of one of the quirks about the initiative process we have. And I would like to take just a minute and just have a brief conversation about that. Not every state has a citizen initiative process, and I think many of our viewers may not really understand how that process works. Can you enlighten us a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit more than half the states have initiative process like we have here. And basically it was put in our state constitution by our founders saying we don't necessarily trust the politicians. We want to give citizens the right to make their own laws as they see fit. And so the way it works is that any citizen can go file an initiative, you get it in legal language, and then once it's approved by the Secretary of State, you go get signatures for it. And you've got to have 246,000 signatures currently to get an initiative on the ballot. Usually takes more than that because there's always about 10 or 15% of names that aren't valid. And it's a process that's been used frequently in this state for everything from pro-choice rights to death with dignity, legalize marijuana, gun rights, car tabs, cut taxes, make it more difficult to raise taxes, all kinds of things. So today we're seeing 3 initiatives on the ballot, and that's how you do it. It was originally intended, I think, for a true citizens grassroots movement to go get signatures and petitions at your neighborhood grocery store, wherever. It's become much more of a tool for people with a lot of money to get things on the ballot because they usually have to pay those signature gatherers now to get them on the ballot.
Right. I know one of the first big referendum/initiatives that I remember when I first moved here was 695, which is where Tim Eyman really became moved into the public eye with the flat excise or the flat tab fees for that, and it was, you know, it was a huge impact on state budget when that passed. So. You know, I have friends who live in states that don't have initiative that, you know, kind of cock their head and go, seriously, you guys do that? And I'm like, yeah, it's a very cool thing in some ways, but in other ways it can really be problematic. Yeah,
the challenge is that it's not always a big picture, so that we consider these as citizens one at a time. And typically what happens in the state is when it's a chance to vote for more services, like more teachers, we tend to vote yes. And when it comes time to say, should we increase taxes, we vote no. Or should we make it more difficult to raise taxes, we say yes. So we tend to be kind of negative on any tax increases and positive on any service improvements. And so then that leaves the legislature to try to balance that budget. And we never sort of look at ourselves and say, well, we kind of helped create this deficit by getting more services and lower taxes. But that is one of the little quirks of the initiative process.
Okay, I need to just kind of ask staff, are we ready to look at numbers? Or should we take a little break, come back in just a second maybe? Yes, no, maybe? Okay, tell you what. Well, let's move on. I've still got the Secretary of State's website up. And I am looking right now, we'll probably have more numbers. I'm looking at the 10th Congressional District, which is Denny Heck, Joyce McDonald race. That is a little closer than I expected it would be. Right now, Denny Heck is leading with 51.3% of the vote. Joyce McDonald with 48.7% of the vote. Is that indicative of what's happening nationwide, do you think?
Again, we have to see where those numbers are coming from. That seems surprising to me. Joyce McDonald, I think, a credible Republican candidate, but not much money. She raised a very less amount of money than what I thought, and Representative Heck had quite a bit of funding, and so it seemed like the special interest groups that would usually fund challengers weren't getting behind her.
I would like to point out for viewers that the 60-40 you see on the screen right now, that's for Thurston County voters. The numbers I just read came off the Secretary of State's office because the new district, District 10, is not just in Thurston County. It's got Thurston and
lots of Pierce County and it kind of goes up a little bit further north. So it's got a lot of different areas. I would expect that Representative Heck is going to win re-election, but that's a little bit closer at first. And so much is where these early votes come in from, but that's closer than I would have expected.
And then while I'm at it, might as well look at District 3, or Congressional District 3, which is South County, a little chunk of South County. And this is for the total race from the Secretary of State's. The Republican incumbent, Jamie Herrera Butler, is leading in that race 60 to roughly 61 to 39 roughly. So that is pretty significant.
Seems pretty much what I would expect.
A much more conservative voter base in that county.
And they have made that district more conservative and more Republican in the last couple of years when they redistricted most recently. And it is a race where Denny Heck ran originally and lost to Jamie Herrera Butler. So that's, I think, it leans to solid Republican at this point.
Right. Okay. Well, Hank, stay with us. You're watching TCTV's live election night coverage, The First Returns. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this brief message.
Are you shopping for Christmas and you want to keep your dollars local? Grab a Buy Local coupon book and get some great bargains and gift ideas for your friends and family. Sustainable South Sound puts this program together to improve the quality of life in communities of the South Puget Sound region. And they are our guests for this month's Mission Nonprofit. Watch Mission Nonprofit Sundays at 4:30 p.m., Tuesdays at 7 p.m., Thursdays at 7:30 p.m., and Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. on Channel 77 on Comcast, Channel 23 on Fairpoint in Yelm, and also available in high definition on youtube.com/Thurston Community TV.
I love TCTV, but I don't have a TV here. If only there was a way for me to catch up on all the great content.
Oh, but there is.
Who is that? Where are you?
Right in front of you.
You're my computer?
Yes. Now let me show you how to see TCTV wherever you want, whenever you want.
Whoa! 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 Where am I?
This is TCTV.net, the home of TCTV Video on Demand.
Video on demand? What's that?
It's a new section on the website where you can easily stream your favorite TCTV shows from any computer connected to the internet.
Wow, that's great. I can't wait to watch all the awesome shows that I haven't seen yet.
At the bottom of the front page of TCTV.net, there's a video player. Click on the link on the top left of that player that says On Demand. Next, click anywhere on the video player screen and you'll see a list of TCTV shows you can watch without cable from anywhere in the world.
Thanks, Mr. Computer.
Welcome back to The First Returns, TCTV's live election night coverage. I'm your host, Deborah Vinsel, CEO here at TCTV. We're going to check the numbers we have in from Thurston County Auditor's Office. I've got Peter Rex with me here from South Puget Sound Community College. He teaches political science there, so we're going to have a conversation about what's going on. We're getting the numbers in, and we put them into our system. Now, I will share with you that having a vote-by-mail ballot has certainly changed the way the media handles election night, at least in Washington State. Because in most cases, you get one set of numbers on election night, so it can be a tad bit anticlimactic. And we're going to be getting to those numbers in just a little bit. But we're really pleased to have with us on the phone now. I'm sure she's, wiping, oops, thought we had her on the phone. We have Mary Hall, our Thurston County Auditor. Are you there, Mary? Hello, Mary?
Yes, I'm hearing a lot of static in the background, dial tones and static.
Get her back. We'll talk to Mary in just a second. She was so very gracious to invite us or to allow us to come over to the election office or to the election processing office yesterday to do the Follow the Ballot video that you saw earlier. So are you there, Mary?
I'm here.
Yay, you're back with us. Congratulations. We got through the first set of numbers.
Good deal.
So how many ballots did we count today? Do you know?
Today we counted about 51,600
ballots. And you anticipate that to be about 50% of the ballots you anticipate counting?
We have more to count. 1,000 that came in today from the drop boxes late in the afternoon. And then we certainly expect a lot more tonight and in tomorrow's mail. So, I'm hoping for 50%. Whether or not we'll get there is yet to be seen.
So I know it's quite a crunch here, and we had the Follow the Ballot video earlier. Thank you for allowing us to come over to do that.
Sure, my pleasure.
So how many more counts are there going to be this week?
Well, we will count every day that we have more ballots than 500. So tomorrow will be the big day. We expect to be through the bulk of the ballots by Friday, and then it will just be the stragglers that come in, the ballots that we have to duplicate, ballots from military, arrive later because they're not required to have that postmark. So we'll always be counting a few, but the bulk of them we expect to be through by Friday.
So if anything is really particularly close, it could be a few days before we see how it trends.
Sure, and I think the thing that people need to realize is that what we counted today is really a very good sampling from the county. So unless it's razor thin margin, we don't really expect things to flip.
Don't anticipate to see big changes in any of the percentages. Okay. So, another big count tomorrow. Certification in 2 weeks.
Certification is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Okay. So that'll be upcoming. Okay.
We've got 21 days to certify the election.
So, I'm sure you've been watching kind of the numbers. Any surprises?
I think there were some wider margins than I expected. I expected the PUD race to be closer, the commissioner race to be closer, the clerk race to be closer. So, but the voters definitely had their minds made up.
Okay. Well, and you, of course, have been reelected for office. You came onto the ballot without an opponent this time, so thank you for your service and for the hard work over there at the elections office.
Thank you, and I want to thank the citizens of Thurston County for their vote of confidence in me, and I look forward to 4 more years. Okay, well, thanks, Mary. We look forward to working with you in the future, and thanks for spending some time with us tonight. I know you have places you need to be, so we'll let you get to that. Okay, thank you very much for having me. Thanks so much, Mary. Bye-bye. Mary Hall, Thurston County Auditor, at the end of the first night of counting of the first returns here in Greater Thurston County. So as she said, Peter, something that folks may not be real, just if you're not a poll watcher or a political wonk, is that, many of the percentages that we see probably won't change significantly.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. A lot depends on whether people change their minds at the last minute. Occasionally, you'll see that on campaigns if they have robocalls or mail pieces that are going, phone calls. So sometimes you will see a little bit of change. If it's not a really close election, if it's not like within 3 or 4 percentage points, you probably won't see a change in the results. So if it's 56 to 42 or something like that, you're probably not going to see an alteration in the result. Okay. There are several other races that were uncontested races, so we would like to thank Coroner Gary Warnock for running again for his seat. Also, Prosecuting Attorney John Tunheim was unopposed on the ballot. Sheriff John Snaza was unopposed, and Treasurer Sean Myers, all unopposed and re-elected to their offices, so we want to thank them for their service. So I'm hopeful that we've got some numbers. Do we have numbers now? Can we go to numbers? Okay. So now, okay, I can see that. We have a candidate on the phone running for Thurston County Commission office, Bud Blake. So, hi, Bud. Are you there? I am here. Hey, Bud. Welcome to the program. So, how are you feeling about things?
We are very excited right now. We're happy with the results. And Thurston County residents are kind of the voting process. We're happy as all get out. Yes.
Okay. Is there anybody? It sounds like you're having a party there. Is there anybody you'd like to thank that was involved in your campaign?
Yes. First and foremost, my wife. It took 29 years. She's been my go-to person for money advice, for treasurer, and she's been my soul and body for the years done. I rely on her community, my daughters, and all my supporters that I've had here and throughout the rest of the county have been absolutely marvelous. Local communities in the county in terms of a new candidate and now an elected official.
Okay. Well, I know you've got a lot of people that you probably need to get back to, and we appreciate you taking time on tonight to spend a couple minutes on the phone with us. So we'll keep an eye on the results and go have fun.
Yes, thank you, Thurston County.
Thanks for calling. That was candidate for Thurston County Commission District Number 3, Bud Blake. So let's go to numbers. If we've got some of the county numbers, we'd really like to share those with our viewers. Can we do that? Hello? Numbers? I'm thinking yes. Oh, there we go. Okay. In the assessor's race, Stephen Drew has 54% of the vote right now, and Carol Pearson with 45% of the vote. Stephen is the incumbent in that office, so it looks like he has a pretty healthy lead in that race. Moving on, in the county clerk's race, Linda Enlow, 54% of the vote. Yvonne Pettis with 44% of the vote. Again, a healthy lead there. And that's one of those situations where you could see both of them were Democrats on the ballot, so that was a function of that top two.
An interesting race because you had a former deputy clerk running against the current deputy clerk.
Right.
Both Democrats, both endorsed by the Democrats, and then kind of a little wrinkle at the very end. There was a mail piece sent out by Yvonne Pettis that was factual, reprinting part of the Olympian, but it was seen as kind of too negative, and so the Democrats revoked their endorsement of her because they had sort of a pledge to not attack each other. But really, by most standards, it was very mild, but that might have been enough to help Linda Enlow take the lead.
We'll talk about that whole campaign environment in a minute. Okay, moving on to the county commission race. This was we're on the phone with Bud Blake, who is running as an independent against incumbent Karen Valenzuela. This is a really big margin. Bud Blake with 54% of the vote right now, Karen Valenzuela with only 45%.
A surprise.
That's a surprise.
Yeah, and not a total shocker. It's funny, I ran a straw poll in my 3 classes, and they ended up going pretty strongly for Bud Blake. And I kind of talked about the information they were reading and the research they were doing. It's a pretty Democratic county, and to see a Democratic incumbent behind by 10 points on election night it's a pretty big surprise. So I'm not sure if that's going to hold, but I would certainly feel pretty good if I were Bud Blake tonight, and it looks like he might be on his way to becoming a county commissioner.
Well, it's like Mary Hall said, 50% of the ballots in right now. That's a very big margin, a 9-point margin. That's a pretty big margin. So, but you never know. That's 50%. We've got another 50% of the ballots to count. So we'll see what happens. Moving on to the next race. Oh, in the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court judicial races don't get a whole lot of press. We have had an opportunity to have some judicial candidate forums in here, and they really almost have to twist themselves into knots to keep from answering questions in a way that would appear to be taking a position on something. So I think a lot of people don't know about the judicial races. But right now we see Charles Johnson with a huge lead over Eddie Yoon. I have some friends of mine who live in other states where the Supreme Court is appointed who find that electing the judiciary is a little odd.
It seems a little odd because we can't gather that much information. They're not allowed to share how they would rule on cases. They can talk only very broadly, so there's not a whole lot we can do on that. Charles Johnson winning election is kind of interesting because I think it was now maybe 20 years ago when he first won election, he beat the Chief Justice, a person by the name of Keith Callow. Charles Johnson raised little or no money, got no endorsements, didn't campaign, and he won. And a lot of people thought it was because he had a name that was pretty familiar. Now he's gone on to do a very good job on the Supreme Court, but it kind of shows some of the idiosyncrasies of having Supreme Court judges run for office when we really don't know a whole lot of information about them.
I had a conversation with some friends recently about the whole judicial races, and one said, she said, I can't fill in a bubble because I just don't know anything about these people. So she didn't vote for any of the judiciary. Moving on, position 7, Deborah Stevens with 77% over John Zamboni Scannell, 22%. So that's the position 7 in the Supreme Court. Next up, we've got the PUD Commission. PUD has been a big issue around here. Of course, last year we had the whole PUD, PSE conversation. But in District 2, Russ Olson leading Brian Hess, fairly significant margin there.
Yep, Russ Olson, very well regarded incumbent, very well qualified. Tip of my hat again to Brian Hess. He's one of my former students who decided to run after taking my class last year, so I wish him nothing but the best, and he ran a very good, positive campaign. He learned a lot from it, too.
There you go, and I'm sure he learned a lot in your class.
Well, I hope so, yeah.
Okay, moving on, more numbers. What do we got? Chris Stearns and Dennis Pulsifer. Chris Stearns leading with 61% of the vote. Dennis Pulsifer 39%. That's for the PUD district number 2. So I don't think that's so much of a surprise.
Not a surprise in the result. I think, but Mary Hall was sort of alluding to it. I think the margin was a little bit bigger. Dennis Pulsifer, highly qualified, ran a good campaign, was visible, and I think people thought that'd be a little closer. But it's always difficult to beat an incumbent.
Okay. What else do we have? Moving on. Anything? Oh, and this is for Congressional District 3. Now again, these are the Thurston County numbers that you see on the screen behind us here. 64% of the voters in Thurston County voting for Jamie Butler, 36% voting for Bob Dingenthal, and real quick here, I can refresh my page, I think, and get new numbers from the Secretary of State. Ta-da! Yeah, the Secretary of State's office showed that for the entire district, Butler has 60% of the vote, Dingenthal 40%.
Yeah, the part for Thurston County that we're seeing there for Jamie Herrera Butler is the southernmost part, which tends to be more conservative, and that's she's an incumbent once again.
Okay, now let's take a look at District 10, which would be the Denny Heck-Joyce McDonald race. In Thurston County, of course, it makes a lot of sense that Denny would have such a sizable lead in Thurston County. It's his hometown.
Very well known here in town locally, even has his own seat down at Ramblin' Jack's.
Yeah, they know the man. District-wide, though, Denny his margin has grown a bit. He now has 55% of the vote to almost 56% of the vote to 44%, Joyce McDonald, district-wide. So his lead is widening a little bit there.
It's closer to what I think will be the final result. Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, moving on. Our next is the state legislative races. And again, if the district spans more than Thurston County, the numbers you see on the monitor behind me are just from Thurston County. And right now in legislative district 2, which just has a little tiny piece of Thurston County over by Yelm, you see that Graham Hunt has 57%, Greg Hartman 43%. That's in Thurston County. We're going to take a break from the numbers right now because right now we have Chris Stearns on the phone. Hi, Chris. Chris, are you there?
Yeah.
Hi, how you doing?
Pretty you doing?
We're doing well. Thank you for thanks for taking time to join us tonight.
For sure.
We're glad to see you.
So I'm down with the Democrats at the Heck campaign. Just saw my fellow commissioner, Russ Olson, who won tonight too by a significant amount.
Cool. That's great.
So is
there anyone you would like to thank who was involved in your campaign?
Yes, I'd like to thank my campaign manager, Tom Nogler, dedicated activist on many issues, especially mental health issues in the county, and a union activist. Also, I'd like to thank Doug Bell, our second vice chair of the Democrats in Thurston County, and Tammy Losey, who did a lot of work on my campaign in terms of audiovisual and all that kind of stuff.
Great.
And all the people on my campaign committee, Paul Pickett, former PUD commissioner, Guy Hoyle-Dotson, Roberto Zenz, and many others out there. Some I've already mentioned, Tom and Doug Bell.
So is there anything in particular you're looking forward to? It certainly looks like the numbers are trending your direction tonight.
I noticed that, my opponent was supported by my fellow commissioner and that she did radio ads for him. And, one of the things I've learned from other commissioners is be careful of getting involved in races in your own county that are for your own position, because it may look like you're a little biased about it. And, we've seen people violate that rule, but it never turns out well. Now, I enjoy working with both my commissioners. They're very balanced people. They have heartfelt feelings, otherwise they wouldn't be in office. But, so do people who support me. So, you just have to respect each other and move together towards a common goal.
Well, congratulations. Like I said, it certainly looks like the numbers are trending your direction. And we look forward to working with you in the future.
Yeah,
and thank you for running for office again.
I was surprised by the county commissioner race. That really took me off guard. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, that was a surprise here too, I think. So
that was the biggest surprise of the night, and of course, what's going on nationally, of course. So.
Yeah. So, and we may have a little bit of time to talk about national stuff. Well, thank you for joining us. Get back to your celebration.
Yeah, thank you. And you have an excellent evening, and thanks, everybody, for making this happen.
You're more than welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Bye now.
That was Chris Stearns, currently leading in his race for PUD commissioner. So he mentioned national. We were kind of watching the national returns a little bit. There's some crazy stuff going on out there. Yeah,
it seems like it's going to be a big night for Republicans, and most likely taking the U.S. Senate and getting control of that. We'll see what that means for the next 2 years of the Obama administration and its relationships with Congress. Off-year elections tend to be more Republican. The people who come out and vote in off-year elections tend to be a little bit older, and they tend to be more supportive of Republicans. And also the more casual voters who vote in presidential elections tend to be more Democratic. And so this is a good year for the Republicans for sure.
Was there anything happening, you know, out in the rest of the country that surprised you when you were watching earlier?
The state of Virginia was much closer than that was expected. That was one the Democrats were expected to hold on to. Mostly just kind of really close races, and a lot of them are going to take a while, and there'll probably be 1 or potentially 2 races that go to a runoff. So even people who are sick of all the political drama might have another month of it.
Okay, let's take a look at legislative districts in the state of Washington. We just talked about District 2. District 22 obviously is one that, you know, we're particularly interested in because that is the district that most of Greater Thurston County is. And right now, Chris Reichdahl, the Democrat, is leading with almost 64% of the vote. Steve Owens has roughly 36% of the vote. Probably not a surprise there.
These are reliably Democratic districts. They're always around 65 to 70%. The only thing is, like, this sometimes is a little bit marker of how the night has gone for Democrats. And you can see, again, both Sam Hunt and Chris Reichdahl doing very well.
Right. Sam Hunt, in his race, with almost 74% of the vote. Franklin Edwards, 25% of the vote. So, and Sam, the incumbent in that race also.
Right.
So moving on with the legislative districts for District 20. I think is what we have coming up next. Richard DeBolt with 60% of the vote. And against this, these are 60% of the votes cast in Thurston County. I'll pull the Secretary of State's website up here. Michael Savoca with 40% of the vote. Let me see if I can find that one real quick. 2020.
Yeah, the bulk of that district is going to be down in Lewis County. So I think all the incumbents in District 20 are going to be safe again for their re-elections.
Yeah, in District 20, the position 2, Ed Orcutt, has a pretty significant lead. He's looking at 70% district-wide over John Morgan. Richard DeBolt for his position 1 seat, 63%, with Michael Savoca 33%. So moving on to the next legislative race, which I think would be, we talked about District 2 early. Graham Hunt in Greater Thurston County, 57% of the vote. Greg Hartman with 43% of the vote. In Legislative District 2, Position 2, J.T. Wilcox with almost 70% of the vote. Steve Nielsen, 30%. Now, this is an interesting rate, a Republican and Libertarian. So
right, and Steve Nielsen is, again, very well informed. He has some background as a Republican, ran as a Libertarian this time, and I think a lot of people liked their interactions with him.
One of the most interesting races I also think that's, that we see now is District 35 State Senator between Tim Sheldon and Irene Bowling. Generally speaking, I have always felt that elections in Greater Thurston County and southwestern Washington in general were always pretty civil. This one was getting kind of ugly.
Yeah, and I don't know that we can take the blame for that one in Thurston County, because I do think that, yeah, I mean, that kind of extends into Mason and Kitsap County as well for that district. But it's, I mean, it's a great, very interesting race. Tim Sheldon's identified himself as a Democrat, often votes with Republicans, voted to organize with the Republicans to give the Republicans the majority in the state Senate this last time. And so Democrats are worked very hard to try to remove him. And there's lots of special interest money being spent in this race, more than $1 million for a job that pays $45 grand a year. And it's really a lively one. And you know, he's been in for 24 years. He's well known, and he's also the Mason County Commissioner. So people are used to seeing his name on the ballot. And I'll be very curious to see how it turns out. But he tends to be a person who survives these kinds of challenges.
District-wide in the 35th district, he has 55% of the vote. Irene Bowling with 45. So that just, I mean, that doesn't look like that's going to flip either. Another interesting race is Kathy Hayes' race. It is very close. 53% of Thurston County voters voted for, oops, back up, we just lost something. District 35 State Position 1, Kathy Hay, 53% for Kathy Hay, Dan Griffey. But district-wide, if you look at the Secretary of State's website, it is a virtual tie. It is a virtual tie, 50.34% for Kathy Haig and 49.66% for Dan Griffey. This is a real tight race.
Yeah, and this is the third time Dan Griffey has run against Kathy Haag, and it's been close almost every other time. And I think he thinks this third time's a charm. He's running in a year that's probably going to be a little bit better for Republicans. So I expect this one to be close and might go to several days beyond before we know the result on that one.
Yeah, see, in Thurston County, you can see the numbers. She has a little of Thurston County voters prefer the incumbent, but in her district-wide. So some interesting things happening politically, what's going on here. Yep. So I mentioned earlier that I think things tend to be a little bit civil, pretty civil around here. I could say in the 24 years that I've been here, you know, there have been, you count them on one hand, local races that got testy. Why do you think that is? Well, I think, first of all, I think it's great that we have civil political discourse in Greater Thurston County. Yeah. But it's so different from what you see in other parts of the country.
Yeah, I think, you know, a couple things are probably at play. One, being the seat of state government. You have lots of people who work around government and our understanding of laws, regulations. They're savvy, sophisticated voters. They know what kind of is truthful and what's not. They don't like exaggerations because they see what that means in the world of making laws and carrying out laws. And then you have a lot of people also work in city and local government here. So I think that's kind of a little bit of a buffer to some of that sort of more negative advertising. And then the second thing is it tends to be a pretty strongly Democratic district or county. So you have 58, 59% typically voting Democratic. And so it doesn't lead to a whole lot of really contentious races where you might see that kind of negative campaigning like you saw in the 35th district and some other places. I think those are the two main reasons.
Okay. I noticed, I think, for the first time in this race, much more money being spent on television advertising, especially for the legislative seats, the state legislative seats. It surprised me.
Unbelievable.
Where's the money coming from, for one thing?
Well, a couple of things. You know, there are 4 or 5 races this time that are really being heavily targeted, especially for the state Senate. Some of those are over $2.5 million spent, $1.5 million, and it's just, the money is crazy for again, a job that pays $45,000 a year. It seems totally out of whack with what all of us would see as responsible and reasonable. But with the changes in election laws and allowing people to donate through these various organizations, these independent organizations, and Supreme Court decisions that said basically free speech or campaign donations are equal to free speech. Yeah, so you have opened the door to donating huge amounts of money, and there are a lot of rich people who really like spending money on political campaigns to sort of see their agenda take shape. So we're seeing that, I think, across the country. The amount of money being spent is just unbelievable. And 9 out of 10 Americans will tell you they really hate it.
Yeah, well, you know, I've heard that from a lot of folks locally, too, that, you know, that races here tend to be modest in terms of the money spent. But we have seen over the last few years the amount of campaign dollars being raised and spent ratcheting up. Yeah,
when I saw some of these legislative races going over $1.5 million, $2 million, I've never seen numbers like that. You know, that's kind of like a congressional race, right? For a really competitive congressional race. And these districts, they're small. You know, they're representing like, you know, 70, 80,000, maybe 100,000 people. So they're much smaller than what a congressional district is. And to be spending that kind of money is just, I don't even know how you would spend that much. I really don't know what you would do. So
a lot of mailers.
A lot of mailers, yeah.
A lot of mailers go out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to be back with Peter Rex in just a moment to finish our program for tonight. But I'm going to throw this back to to the control room. I need to let my voice rest for a second and get a drink of water. So we'll be right back. Stay with us right after this message.
Are you shopping for Christmas and you want to keep your dollars local? Grab a Buy Local coupon book and get some great bargains and gift ideas for your friends and family. Sustainable South Sound puts this program together to improve the quality of life in communities of the South Puget Sound region. And they are our guests for this month's Mission Nonprofit. Watch Mission Nonprofit Sundays at 4:30 p.m., Tuesdays at 7 p.m., Thursdays at 7:30 p.m., and Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. on Channel 77 on Comcast, Channel 23 on Fairpoint in Yelm, and also available in high definition on youtube.com/Thurston Community TV.
I love TCTV, but I don't have a TV here. If only there was a way for me to catch up on all the great content.
Oh, but there is.
Who is that? Where are you?
Right in front of you.
You're my computer?
Yes. Now let me show you how to see TCTV wherever you want, whenever you want.
Whoa! 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 Where am I?
This is TCTV.net, the home of TCTV Video on Demand.
Video on demand? What's that?
It's a new section on the website where you can easily stream your favorite TCTV shows from any computer connected to the internet.
Wow, that's great. I can't wait to watch all the awesome shows that I haven't seen yet.
At the bottom of the front page of TCTV.net, there's a video player. Click on the link on the top left of that player that says On Demand. Next, click anywhere on the video player screen and you'll see a list of TCTV shows you can watch without cable from anywhere in the world.
Thanks, Mr. Computer.
Okay, we're back. I'm joined here at our First Returns Anchor Desk with Peter Rex from South Puget Sound Community College, Professor of Political Science. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for joining us.
A lot of fun.
So let's take a look at some initiatives. We talked about them early in the show. In Thurston County, Initiative 1351, which has to do with class size. In Thurston County, it's failing 50% to 47%, and statewide, it's also failing. But it's a much narrower margin. It's like almost 50-50 statewide right now.
I think that one is probably going to pass pretty widely in King County. I think the numbers will continue to go up, and I think it's probably going to pass.
You think 1351 will pass?
I do think it will pass.
Okay, because right now we have almost 601,000 voting no and 588,000 voting yes statewide.
Might be Thursday or Friday before
we find out for sure. I think, you know, some of the folks I talked to about this initiative, smaller class size, you see that, it's like, oh, what a great idea. But if you really start reading the initiative itself, it's an unfunded process. So how do you reduce classes and reduce class size without funding to support it? And considering the McCleary decision, that the legislator is under fire from the Supreme Court already for not providing funding. So
my reading of that is that the backers of that initiative just want to put even more pressure on the legislature and perhaps give them cover for doing a tax increase if necessary, to say, look, the people are behind spending money on schools, go ahead and do it. And so I think that was behind that, because I think it's going to be difficult with all the things you just mentioned to implement it.
And then the other one we want to take a look at is 594, which is the background checks. It is passing statewide, passing in Thurston County, as you can see, by a fairly wide margin. And 591, the competing initiative to that, is currently failing statewide, also failing in Thurston County. So not really any big surprises there.
No, I think that's kind of what we would have expected, what the polls were showing prior to the election. Okay, great. Yeah, you can see, I just had to look. Now we have Fire Protection District 7. That has been approved by 76% of vote. This was the merger of the districts? Yeah, that's merging two fire districts, and one has gotten pretty small and it's having a hard time getting enough staff and volunteers.
And that's District 7 and District 8.
Correct, right, and it goes with a little property tax bump. So the two things have to both pass together for it to actually happen.
And that serves portions of North Thurston County, South Bay area. Correct. Yeah, okay, great. So, well, we're going to wrap it up for tonight. We've run through all the numbers for tonight. Some big surprises. Karen Valenzuela on the downside of that vote. Bud Blake with a pretty significant lead there. A couple of the initiatives fairly tight. That was the big surprise for the evening.
I think so, yeah, and it shows that if you just keep running and have a good campaign, anything can happen, and that's why we have elections, right?
That's why we have elections. Again, this is just the first set of returns. There will be another count tomorrow. Almost 50% of the ballots were counted today. Mary Hall County Auditor said they'll have another big count tomorrow, but probably not so many on Thursday and Friday. If ballots were postmarked today, they would be considered valid ballots, and anything picked up in the drop boxes late this afternoon will probably be, or after, I think, 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock this afternoon, won't be counted till tomorrow. So, you never know. Numbers turn, but we've had some surprises. This has been the First Returns, TCTV's live election night coverage. We want to thank our friends at Chaos Radio 89.3 for carrying our audio signal. Remember, every year TCTV and the League of Women Voters put election-related and candidate-related programming together so that you can make an informed decision. If you didn't watch the candidate forums and the video voters guide this year, be sure you look for them next year, because we know we're going to have them. And for our radio audience, we're going to read the credits for you. The First Returns was produced by Robert Cam with associate producer Bob Neal. I'm Deborah Vinsel, your host. Our special guests were Betty Gould and Peter Rex. The program was directed by Robert Cam, graphics by Freddie Dobler, audio engineer Bob Neal, camera operator Dennis Mills, teleprompter Maxwell Brown, internet engineer John Koch, technical director Spencer Mordick. Special thanks to Auditor Mary Hall for her interview and to all of the candidates who ran for public office and gave time to us tonight. And thank you for watching. Be sure to tune in again next year when TCTV brings you local election returns. Thanks for watching.